Have you ever had someone call you stupid or worthless or not good enough? Have you ever had someone make an incomplete assumption about you or your character or even the way you live your life based on very limited information about you? Because I have. And even if I might not know you very well personally, I'm so sure that you've had this happen to you at some point too. And I'm also sure of the fact that it was not a very pleasant experience. Irrespective of who we are and who we're trying to be as people, there is a definite reflection in us of the people around us. Like that could be our family, our friends, our colleagues, our like, neighbors, people that we move around with in a social setting, anything. And the more you interact with such people, the more you move around with such people, the more likely they are to form an opinion about you or your character or your life or your decisions, actions, habits, whatever. And from the way I look at it, or from my personal experience, the bigger problem here is not the fact that people are jumping to incomplete conclusions because of incomplete information, but what's more harmful than jumping to conclusions here is the fact that words stick, labels stick, and irrespective of whether you recognize this happening or not, these comments, these assumptions, these incomplete conclusions, they lead to a very twisted kind of messaging that somewhere sits in your subconscious. This messaging and what you hear about you from the people around you, even if it's not always directed at you explicitly, it there's a big chance that it becomes a part of you. Like, this is very similar to the way affirmations also work. When you keep reminding yourself about the positive things in your life or the goals and ambitions that you want to achieve, once you start messaging it to your own brain, when you start repeating it enough times, it becomes a part of you. You start believing that, you start living that, you start becoming that. So that subconscious messaging becomes your reality. And on its flip side, the same happens with negative comments as well. If you hear negative things about yourself, whether they're true or not, like if that keeps happening over time, if you keep listening to those hurtful, negative, mean comments about yourself from other people over and over and over again, there's a big chance that you start internalizing it. It sits in your subconscious and subsequently it becomes a part of you. So, positive or negative, that messaging becomes your reality whether you like it or not. Okay, story time. Growing up, I was called a bad influence for the longest time. Like, as a kid, my friends' parents, they never really liked me very much on the first meeting, no matter how polite or nice or courteous I was. Even when I would go over to their places to just play or chill, or when I would attend their kids' birthday parties, they always had these little side glances and little whispering going on in the back whenever I would walk in the room and do something as simple as like dancing at a party. As a kid, especially as an innocent kid who had not done anything wrong per se, I always felt the need to prove these people wrong. I used to get so frustrated by people's snap judgments about me that I started working so hard towards not giving them a chance to make any kind of such conclusions about me. I started working really hard on my grades, my extracurriculars, my sports, cultural activities, everything that was possible at that time. So because I was doing everything, and like with practice, I started getting good at it as well. I felt that those people would have lesser and lesser reasons to talk crap about me, or, just gossip about me or discuss my life in a negative sense. And thankfully for me, that did work out well for a while. That bad influence image of me, that did flip around for a while, and then they started seeing me as that hardworking all-rounder kind of a person who puts in the effort and is doing well in life generally. Then during this weird adolescent phase, things were very complicated, as they are for any teenager in that stage of life. I was lost, I was confused, I was trying to figure out who I was as a person, and just, getting myself into all kinds of trouble in that process. And as a result of this complicated phase of life and the confusion and the mess that followed, it didn't take long for my reputation as a bad influence to get restored. I would still work hard for school and other activities. So now I had these aunties passing backhanded comments about me, which were very well shrouded, but I could really see right through them and their comments. They'd have very sarcastic responses about me, how I look, how I dress, who I hang out with, and most importantly, who I date. And things just started getting worse for me when I started getting my hair colored or when I got tattoos. Even though now I was transitioning from a teenager to a full grown adult, it didn't matter. It didn't make a difference. It didn't stop these people from just talking all kinds of shit about me. And at first, I just thought that it was the parents and that older generation who didn't understand me or didn't want to see me for who I really was. But what made me sadder at that time was that it was also the people my age, people who seemingly had an idea of who I was as a person, who I really am, but maybe despite all of that information, they still chose to see me as how I came across instead of how I was inside. Everything I would do, every person I would date, every friend I would have, any life decision I would make, it would just get blown up out of proportion every single time. And maybe I was also responsible somewhere for exaggerating things a bit, but I definitely did not deserve that kind of attention. And nor did I want it in the first place. And while all of this was happening, I always tried not to pay much heed to all of these comments or these labels or these judgments. But after a while, I had to come to terms with the fact that rumors stick. And when I was a kid, these things really stung me, and I tried very hard to prove these people wrong. But as a teenager, especially in that complicated, messy state of mind, I was so dead set on becoming a rebel and just owning up whatever they said about me. So I think for a good 4 or 5 years, while I was struggling in that adolescent phase, I stopped fighting this. Like, I stopped fighting these people on what they were trying to establish me as. And I just started owning up to whatever they said about me. Like, if they said I was a loud kid, I made sure that I was the loudest one in the room. If they said that I was a certain kind of person because of my colored hair, I made sure to go to their place with an even wilder hair color and hairstyle the next time. Even with my school friends and just the people that I was hanging out with at that time, I had heard them call me a slut so many times just for talking to guys. And that was not always in a romantic or like a sexual sense. It was just me being friends with guys. I had heard that word so many times that I just ended up internalizing it, and I went above and beyond with it. I ended up becoming the most physically and emotionally promiscuous person I could be. And this going above and beyond did work out for me for a while because I became so thick skinned that none of this touched me. But of course, that didn't last very long because very quickly, when people realized that I was not getting affected by their comments about me and my personal life, I don't know, they probably saw it as a challenge for them to see how hurtful and how mean they can be. There were times when I would have really bad fights and I would just like get up and run away and go to a friend's place to be in an environment that I would consider safe at that point. Sadly for me, I thought that I was going to a friend. I thought that I was going to a safer environment, but me doing that just gave them another thing to say about me. That, oh, this is a bad kid from the broken family. They were very quick to jump onto all of these incidents to label me as that person who started being known for the issues and the labels rather than the fact that I was really just struggling to be a decent human being despite being the center of such kind of horrible, unwanted attention. I absolutely loved it when I moved to college. I had a chance to start over. I had a chance to move away from all of that negativity and just leave that baggage behind, cut off from that part of my life that I did not enjoy a lot. In college, what I loved the most was that people knew me for what I did and who I truly was, instead of judging me for coming from a disruptive family setting or for doing things like getting my hair colored or getting tattoos or talking to guys or going out, whatever. And for me to move away from that constant threat of negative attention, it helped me figure out who I was in a truly free setting without any kind of fear, without any kind of threats, and most importantly, without any kind of judgment. Like, for example, in college, me having tattoos just made me another person who had tattoos, and that didn't carry any other messaging about my personality or my character or who I was as a person. But whenever I would come back home for whatever brief amount of time, it was back to the same thing. By the time I was in college, I had obviously grown. I had changed physically as well. My face was different, my body was different, I got boobs, and then suddenly that's all people saw when they looked at me. And this thing got frustrating in a whole other way. Like, at a point, I was genuinely concerned if a person was talking to me or being nice to me or, just approaching me because they were genuinely interested in getting to know me, or was it only because they liked the way I looked? And this behavior made me insecure on a whole other level. Like, I can have an entirely different episode just about that, but that's for later. Now, at this point in life, I was a full grown adult. I was done with college. I was a more responsible, more filtered, more mature version of myself. So when I would just hear things about myself, it just seemed very trivial to sort of indulge in it or try to prove them wrong or even bother to give a response to them. But I couldn't deny the fact that these words stuck with me, whether I liked it or not. And some things that people said about me, they truly did hurt. What made it worse was most of the times these negative comments were coming from people who were very close to me. It was no longer strangers, it was no longer my friends' parents, it was no longer people who saw my life from a distance. It was people who were very close to me, people that I trusted, people that I thought who would take care of me and protect me. So it was so ironic of me to expect random people to be kind to me and say nice things about me, especially behind my back, when my own close people, like my family and my closest friends, said disgusting, despicable things to me about me all the time. And that would not just be behind my back but also in front of me. And when it comes from a close person that you trust, it doesn't just hurt you, it fucking pierces through your heart. And one of the best parts about growing up is the ability to say fuck you to such people and move on. And after a point, it doesn't even matter who is the source of these comments. It could be your friends, your partner, your family, the society, your boss, whoever. After some time, you just learn to cut these people out and move on with your life. But as for me, I'm still learning how to do that successfully. Because the thing is, growing up and becoming a more evolved version of yourself is not enough. Because as you evolve, so does the way in which you receive these comments and this messaging. The jabs become more sophisticated and the sarcasm becomes more veiled. Because now that you're an adult, there are more stark indicators of your progress and success in life, like your own bank balance or your job or the car you own or the house or whatever. And sometimes you just feel like you're in a position where you read the subtle footnotes that accompany what they're saying to you, but you can't exactly get mad or call them out on it because, oh, I didn't really say anything, I was just joking, which might lead you to end up gaslighting your own self into questioning if you are being over dramatic or if you're making it to be something more than what it is. So I'm still trying to learn how to be more mindful of it and how to disconnect myself with such people more strategically and more artfully, I think. And honestly, I don't really have a good note to end this episode with. All I can say is so many of us have struggled with this kind of hurtful negative attention, and most times we didn't even deserve it. We've been hurt by such comments, we've been made to question our own self, we've been made to feel useless, worthless, and not good enough simply because other people said this, simply because other people made that decision for us. They made that declaration on our behalf. Now, it's not possible for us to go back in time and change the experience that we've had or the experience that someone else has had. But what we can do is be kinder to other people, not make snap judgments about them. Of course, we need to identify red flags as and when necessary. But labeling someone just because they do something that we don't approve of or something that we don't necessarily like, that doesn't give us the right to make any kind of statement about them, their personality, their life, or their character. Because A, it's not our place, and B, it's none of our business. So, yeah, what we can do is be nicer, be kinder, and give each other the benefit of the doubt as much as possible. Because most things that other people do are often not about us, it's about them, their own issues, and their own struggles. We're all trying to figure out our own place in this world. It's messy, it's complicated, and it's more than enough to drive a person crazy. And most importantly, we're all here doing it for the first time. None of us has a guide or a manual on how to live life. So it's just a whole lot of trial and error for everyone. So, yeah, I think this is the least that all of us can do. This was episode 4 of Thought Vault Messaging.